All right, class. I would like to briefly go over some of Adobe Photoshop's UI or user interface before we get started with any of our more complex things. So I'm going to go ahead and just make a new file. All the default custom things, none of this really matters at the moment. We're just going to be looking at the user interface. So the first thing that I want us to do is to navigate up here to Window and Workspace. And the workspace that we're going to be using this year, all throughout the year, is the Essentials or the default workspace. What I want you to do every time you start up Photoshop is go ahead and make sure that you are on Essentials. If anything looks strange, for example, let's say I managed to accidentally close my color panel here. Where are my colors? We can go to Window, Workspace, and reset Essentials, and that will reset the workspace. So we want to first make sure that we're on Essentials, and if it looks weird, reset Essentials. The Essentials workspace should have your toolbar on the left and your Essentials panels on the right. There's also a smaller sub panel here that you can open up. This is going to have your history and comments, which we're not going to use. Close that. All right, so let's go over the different parts of the user interface. There's one that you already know, that's the toolbar over here on the left-hand side. You can make it bigger by clicking these two double arrows here, or skinnier. This here is your active window. This is your canvas. It can either be free floating like this, or if I click and drag it until I see this blue highlight around the edges here, it can be tabbed. So if I open another assignment, you can see that I have two assignments open here in tabs, but they can also be separate windows. I would recommend just leaving everything in tabs, because now, where'd my other window go? Well, now I have to find it. It's somewhere confusing. If you do lose a window and you're pretty sure you didn't close it, you're going to go to Window, Arrange, and Consolidate All to Tabs, and that will put all of these back into tabs for you. Okay, so next up over here, these are going to be our panels. Under our Essentials, these may be in a slightly different order for you, but I think this is the default. We've got the panel that contains color, swatches, gradients, and patterns. We've got the Properties, Adjustments, and Libraries panel. Ignore that. And then we have the Layers, Channels, and Paths panel. These are bare minimum to pretty much complete anything in Photoshop. If we take a look here at the color panel, and I'm going to zoom in, yours probably looks like this, or possibly like this. We want to use, well, you want to use whatever's comfortable for you. I use the color wheel so that I can see the color wheel. And this is how you control your color. This is going to change your foreground color. So if we scooch our way over here, you can see that this foreground color is changing. If I hit that button that resets my foreground color to default, you will see that it sets it back to black foreground, white background. Swatches are going to be anything that you've saved. These are going to be any of the last colors that you used. Gradients are gradients and patterns are patterns. We're going to get into swatches, or excuse me, gradients and patterns another time. Properties panel. This one's big. This one's important. So the properties panel is going to change depending on what you have selected. So at the moment, if I have the move tool selected, I have the properties for the document because there's no options for the move tool. Let's say I have the shape tool selected, sorry, and I create a shape. Now I have shape properties in this properties panel. So for example, I can change the height and width. So let's say I want this to be a 3 by 3 inch circle. This is going to be the XY coordinates. That is where it is sitting. And you can always either type in here or you can mouse right over this and pull it from left to right. Mouse over, click and drag. The properties for our shape are appearance and pathfinder. You don't have to worry about pathfinder. Appearance is going to be the color, which is the fill, and the stroke. So you're going to click here on this box. I can change the stroke color. Stroke, you can also change the size. Ow, that hurts to look at. And you can change if you want it to be dotted or solid or dashed. If you want the stroke to be on the inside, the middle, or the outside. If you want it to have round edges, sharp edges, or have edges that end right at the end of the line. And this is the same thing but for corners. If you don't want a stroke at all, you're going to click the stroke color and go here to no color. This is going to default to swatches, but if you want patterns, gradients, etc., you can do that. You want to select specific colors, you can do that here. Just keep in mind as you're changing this that it does not change this. This we are specifically changing the properties of this specific shape. The other point where you're going to use properties is going to be with text. Woo. Did I spell that right? Probably. Text properties. As long as I have the text layer selected, I can adjust my text properties. The font, the size, and a couple of other font things that we're not going to get into yet, as well as the color. That's going to hurt my eyes again. Sure. Okay. Keep in mind, again, anything that you change in the properties here, especially text color, that is not going to change your foreground color. If I switch over to my brush, well, I have to make a new layer for that. If I switch over to my brush, it's still black because that is what the foreground is set to. All right, and finally, let's talk about the layers panel. I'm actually gonna undock mine here so that I can make it taller. And I'm gonna dock it there. Scooch my history up. Okay, so layers panel. The layers are going to be the different layers of things that you have. Shape layers and text layers always create their own layer. Most drawing tools are going to not create a new layer, so you'll need to make a layer for them. Down here on the bottom, whoops, sorry about the dock, we have the layers button to make a new layer. Layer 1. Next to the new layer button, we have the delete layer button. I have it set so that it doesn't warn me that the layer is getting deleted. Yours is probably going to warn you. Gonna undo that there. Sorry about the dock again. These are for creating layer effects, layer masks, filler adjustment layers, and layer groups. We're not going to worry about any of those right now. Just know that they are there. The big ones for you are going to be new layer and delete layer. Okay, gonna go ahead and put this guy back down here. Channels and paths are not anything that we need to get into right now. But if you ever notice something weird happening with your colors, like it all goes black and white or something, that's usually because a channel or a path got turned off by accident. If you look, the command to quickly turn off the blue channel is Command 5, which is very close to Command Shift 5, which is what we use for screenshots, so keep that in mind. So if anything just looks weird, just check your channels. These should all be on all the time. Paths we don't have to worry about right now. All right, last two things in the user interface. Right up here at the top, this is kind of a quick toolbar. It has tool properties and some options. So again, we're on the brush tool. I can see here that I can change my brush settings. I can click this button to open the big brush settings and brushes here. This basically just opens this panel so that I can access it. I can change my blending mode for the brush, which you don't have to worry about. Opacity, which is how opaque or how solid versus transparent the brush is. Flow isn't going to matter as much, but basically that's going to be how much quote-unquote ink comes out of your brush. Smoothing we'll get into another time. This is, I don't quite remember if that has anything to do with what we need, and then you can also turn on a symmetry mode. So for example, you can turn on vertical symmetry and then symmetry. And delete that layer. Other options, gradient tool, lets you choose gradients. This is basically your properties panel with a little bit more visual differences. All right, so that's going to be pretty much it. The last few things I want to point out, your zoom level, I'm going to zoom in down here. Sorry about the dock. Your zoom level is going to be displayed here, as well as your document size and resolution. Your document name, the size that it's zoomed to, the layer that you're currently on, and the color mode are all listed here. So if I go to a different layer, see that it's ellipse 1. If I zoom in, you see that it's 200%, and so on and so forth. All right, so that's going to be it for the basic overview of the Photoshop user interface.